The invasion that never was. June 13, 1942. Amagansett, Long Island. The Atlantic surf crashes under a moonless sky. A thick fog clings to the shoreline, the kind that turns a world into shifting shadows and whispers. Out of the mist, a black rubber raft slides silently toward the sand. Four men in German naval uniforms pull the oars with practiced precision, their faces pale under the dim red glow of a covered lantern. At the bow sits John Dasch, a wiry man in his late 30s with slick hair and a jaw set in determination. The faint silhouette of a U-boat lingers in the distance, its diesel engines rumbling low before fading back into the fog. The men jump into the shallow surf, dragging the raft ashore. They begin unloading crates wrapped in oilcloth, explosives, detonators, timers, and stacks of U.S. currency. Their boots sink into wet sand as they change out of their uniforms, quickly burying them beneath the dunes. Beneath the loose earth, their navy tunics and caps vanish, replaced by civilian clothes, American suits, hats, and raincoats. Their mission has officially begun. Operation Pastorius, the Abwehr's plan to bring the war to America's heartland, is in motion. Dasch watches the others. Ernst Berger, his second-in-command, and a fellow German-American, Heinrich Heinck, and Richard Quirin. Their orders are clear. Sabotage key U.S. targets. Hydroelectric plants at Niagara Falls, railroad junctions, aluminum factories, even bridges vital to American industry. Quickly, Dasch whispers in German. We move inland before dawn. But even in that quiet darkness, something feels wrong. The fog muffles the world, but there's movement ahead, the soft crunch of approaching footsteps. From the shadows emerges a man in a dark uniform. John Cullen, a 21-year-old Coast Guardsman on routine beach patrol. His flashlight flickers through the mist and catches the glint of metal. Dasch freezes. Behind him, the others reach for the buried crates. Cullen steps closer. What's going on here? He asks, his voice uncertain but firm. Dasch thinks quickly. We're fishermen, he says, forcing a smile. His English carries a faint German accent. Our boat ran aground. But Cullen's beam lingers on the sand. Freshly dug earth, strange bundles, men in wet clothes. He knows something isn't right. Dasch's tone changes. Listen, he says quietly, stepping forward. You didn't see us. Take this. He pulls a wad of bills from his coat, several $100s, and pushes it into Cullen's hand. Go home. Forget tonight. The young guardsman hesitates, heart pounding. The air feels charged, the faint smell of salt and oil, the whisper waves. Then he nods, backs away, and disappears into the fog, his footsteps fading toward the Coast Guard station. As soon as he's gone, Dasch turns to his men. We have to move. Now. They grab their supplies and head inland toward the railroad line. But Dasch knows the truth. The moment Cullen reaches his superiors, their mission will be compromised. By morning, every branch of American law enforcement, the Coast Guard, local police, the FBI, will know that something has come ashore. Across the Atlantic, deep in the Reich Chancellery, the German High Command believes their plan is flawless. Another team, led by Edward Curling, is already en route to Florida aboard another U-boat. 8 men in total, trained in explosives, fluent in English, handpicked by Admiral Wilhelm Cunard himself. The goal: strike fear into the American public, disrupt war production, and force the United States to divert resources from Europe. But as dawn breaks over Long Island, with gulls crying and fishermen returning to the piers, the operation is already slipping through their fingers. Dasch looks out toward the ocean. The U-boat is gone, vanished into gray morning. There's no way back now. The FBI doesn't yet know his name, but within days, his face will be on their most wanted list, and his voice will set off one of the most shocking betrayals of the war. He takes a deep breath, pulls his hat low, and begins walking inland toward the train station. The sand still clings to his shoes. Behind him, buried beneath the dunes, lie the first clues to Germany's failed invasion of the United States. The betrayal begins. June 14, 1942. New York City. A thin mist lingers over the East River as George Dasch steps off the Long Island Railroad platform and merges into the morning crowd. His fedora is tilted low, a cheap suitcase in hand. The city feels impossibly loud after the stillness of the beach, the hiss of steam vents, the clatter of trolley wheels, the hawking of newspaper boys shouting headlines about the war overseas. To anyone watching, he looks like another tired traveler. But inside his suitcase are thousands of dollars, explosives, and forged documents linking him to Nazi Germany. He checks into the Governor Clinton Hotel under a false name and draws the curtains tight. On the bed, he spreads out a map of the United States. Red marks indicate targets. The aluminum plant in Tennessee, railroad lines in Pennsylvania, canal locks in New York. The mission is supposed to unfold over months, a campaign of sabotage and terror meant to shake American morale. But Dasch's hands tremble. He stares at the swastikas stamped on his Abwehr-issued papers and feels something shift deep inside. He remembers a training camp outside Berlin, the rows of recruits shouting, "Heil Hitler," the rigid drills, the promises of glory. He had believed, once, but the more he had seen, the brutality, the arrogance, the blind devotion, the more hollow it felt. He can't do this anymore. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover is unaware that the biggest domestic spy case of the war is about to fall into his lap. The Coast Guard's report from Amagansett, a suspicious encounter with possible saboteurs, has reached headquarters, but without hard evidence, it's just a rumor. That is about to change. On June 15th, in a small hotel room in Manhattan, Dasch turns to his second-in-command, Ernst Berger, a quiet man with kind eyes and a cautious manner. Berger had lived in America before the war, and like Dasch, his loyalty to the Reich had begun to rot from within. "I'm going to the FBI," Dasch says bluntly. Berger blinks. "What?" "I'm telling them everything," Dasch continues, his voice steady but low. "We'll stop this now, before anyone gets hurt." Berger stares at him for a long moment. "You know what that means, George. If they catch us, we die as traitors. If the Germans find out, our families will vanish." Dasch nods slowly. "Then we die clean." That afternoon, Dasch picks up the phone and calls the FBI field office in New York City. His voice is calm, measured. "This is a matter of national security," he says. "I am a German agent. I have information the Bureau will want." The receptionist hesitates, assuming it's a prank. But something in Dasch's tone, a strange mix of authority and fatigue, convinces her to forward the call. Within an hour, 2 FBI agents meet him at the hotel. Dasch opens his suitcase. Inside, $82,000 in American cash, Abwehr documents, and coded messages. The agents exchange incredulous looks. One of them, Agent Dwayne Traynor, asks quietly, "You're serious?" Dasch nods. "There are 8 of us. For in Florida. You'll find them if you act fast." By midnight, the FBI office in Washington is alive with activity. Hoover himself reads the report twice, stunned. In a single day, the United States has gone from hunting invisible saboteurs to having one sitting calmly in custody, handing them everything. Hoover sends orders, full mobilization. All field agents are to pursue every lead from Dasch's testimony. Across the country, FBI agents fan out to New York, Chicago, Cincinnati, and Jacksonville. Within days, the Bureau begins rounding up the other members of Operation Pastorius. Some are asleep in boarding houses. Others are drinking in local taverns, confident that their cover is secure. One by one, they're arrested without a shot fired. In a single week, the German mission collapses. Back in his cell, Dasch waits, his nerves frayed but his resolve intact. He knows the Gestapo will discover his betrayal soon. He knows what the Reich does to traitors. But as the FBI agents take his statement, page after page of names, plans, and procedures, he feels a strange sense of relief. He has become the saboteur who sabotaged the saboteurs. At the White House, President Franklin D. Roosevelt is briefed. The details seem unbelievable. German agents landed on American soil, fully funded and equipped, and captured almost immediately because one of them chose conscience over country. The public won't know the truth yet. The Bureau will take credit for a flawless counterintelligence operation. Hoover will ensure that the story cements the FBI's legend. But for Dasch, none of that matters. He looks out from the barred window of his cell toward the city skyline, the glow of lights beyond the East River. Somewhere out there, the America he came to destroy is still alive, and because of him, it will stay that way. He closes his eyes and whispers to himself, "Let them think what they want. I did what was right." The Trial of the Invisible Army. July 1942, Washington, D.C. The summer air is thick and oppressive, heavy with heat and tension. The FBI headquarters buzzes like a beehive, agents rushing down marble corridors, telephones ringing nonstop, reporters crowding outside the building gates. Operation Pastorius has become the single most sensational espionage case in American history. Inside a high-security holding facility, 8 German saboteurs sit in separate cells, isolated, silent, waiting. They're forbidden to speak to one another, denied newspapers, stripped of every personal belonging. Each man stares through the narrow slit in the steel door, the same thought burning in his mind. How did the Americans know? The answer is sitting 2 floors above them. John Dasch, their commander, leans over a polished oak table, facing a team of federal interrogators. An American flag hangs limply behind them, the only sound the faint hum of a ceiling fan. "Let's go over it again," says Colonel Kenneth Royal, a military lawyer assigned to the case. "You were trained at Quent's Farm near Berlin?" Dash nods. "Yes. They taught us how to blend in, how to talk like Americans, how to live like ghosts." "And your orders?" "Sabotage factories, power plants, railroads, anything that could slow your war production. We were to hide explosives in everyday objects, cigarette packs, soap bars, alarm clocks." Royal's pencil stops moving. "And you volunteered this information freely?" Dash leans back, eyes tired. "Freely, because I never believed in their war." Word of the arrest spreads quietly through Washington's inner circles. The public knows only fragments. FBI foils Nazi plot to sabotage U.S. But behind closed doors, the Roosevelt administration faces an unprecedented legal challenge: how to prosecute enemy agents who landed in wartime America. The president's advisors argue fiercely. Some demand a public trial to show the strength of American justice. Others insist it must be swift and secret, carried out by a military tribunal, not civilian courts. FDR makes the call himself. "They came as enemy soldiers in disguise," he says. "They will face military justice." And so, on July 8, 1942, a temporary courtroom is constructed inside the Department of Justice building. Guards stand at every entrance, rifles at their shoulders. The room smells of varnished wood and sweat. The defendants are brought in one by one: Dash, Berger, Heinck, Quirin, Curling, Neubauer, Thiel, and Haupt. Each wears plain suits, shackled at the wrists. In the front row sits Hoover, immaculately dressed, his expression cold and unreadable. This case will immortalize his bureau. The military commission convenes under secrecy. There are no reporters, no cameras, no jury, only 7 officers handpicked to deliver justice. The prosecutor, Major General Myron Kramer, opens the proceedings with measured gravity. These men entered our shores as enemies of the United States. They came not in uniform but as civilians, spies, saboteurs, infiltrators. Their intent was destruction. They sought to cripple our factories, terrorize our citizens, and aid our enemies. For that, they must pay the ultimate price. The courtroom is silent, except for the rustle of paper and the slow ticking of a clock. Dash sits motionless, watching as his former comrades avoid his gaze. He knows what they're thinking, that he's the reason they're here, the betrayer, the traitor. When it's his turn to speak, Dash's voice is calm, deliberate. "I surrender myself because I believe in justice. I did not come here to destroy America. I came here to stop Germany." His words echo briefly, but they fall into a room made of stone and politics. After weeks of testimony, evidence, and interrogation transcripts, the verdict comes swift and brutal. All 8 are found guilty. 6 will face the electric chair. 2, Dash and Berger, will be spared, their sentences commuted to prison for assisting the U.S. government. August 8, 1942. Before dawn, 6 of the men are led into a windowless execution chamber at the D.C. jail. Their heads are shaved, their faces pale but stoic. Each receives the last rites from a Lutheran pastor. At precisely 1:04 a.m., the first switch is thrown. By sunrise, 6 of Hitler's agents are dead. Their bodies are buried in unmarked graves at Blue Plains, under heavy guard. Their names erased from public record. J. Edgar Hoover calls a press conference later that day. Flashbulbs pop as he steps to the podium, crisp in his tailored suit. The FBI, he announces, has successfully prevented a campaign of terror against the American people. He takes full credit for the arrests, omitting Dasch's role entirely. The newspapers run with the story. FBI foils Nazi plot. America safe from saboteurs. Behind the headlines, George Dasch sits alone in his cell, the distant hum of the city outside. He has saved thousands of lives, but no one will ever know. The Bureau will never reveal that the man who ended the plot was one of its masterminds. As the cell light flickers overhead, Dasch mutters to himself, half in German, half in English, "I betrayed them to save them, and they'll never believe it." Outside, America sleeps a little easier that night, unaware that the greatest German spy operation on U.S. soil was undone not by the FBI's brilliance, but by the conscience of one man who chose to tell the truth, the forgotten traitor. 1943, the war is still raging across Europe, but in America, Operation Pastorius is already fading into legend. Newspapers have turned it into a patriotic fable. A daring FBI operation, flawless in execution, exposing Nazi plots before they could begin. J. Edgar Hoover's name appears in every headline. His portrait graces magazine covers, framed as the man who outsmarted Hitler's spies. No mention is made of John Dasch, the man who made it all possible. In a federal penitentiary in Washington, Dasch reads the stories by the thin light of a barred window. The pages twist his stomach. Hoover has turned him into a ghost, erased from history before the war has even ended. He saved the country, but to the public, he is nothing more than another Nazi agent who failed. He spends his days pacing his cell, writing letters to the Department of Justice, to President Roosevelt himself, trying to explain, "I turned myself in. I prevented bloodshed. I stopped them before they could act." Each letter is polite, measured, and ignored. To the Bureau, he is an inconvenience, a living contradiction to their triumph. Hoover will not risk his legend for the sake of truth. Across the Atlantic, Berlin learns of the failure. The Abwehr is furious, but it is the Gestapo that delivers the final word. Families of the captured saboteurs are quietly interrogated. Some disappear. Inside Hitler's headquarters, whispers circulate that America's intelligence network is untouchable, that the U.S. somehow knew everything before the first U-boat even left port. In truth, it wasn't intelligence that defeated them. It was conscience. Years pass. The Allies land in Normandy. Germany burns, and the Reich crumbles to ash. By 1945, the war is over. The victors write the history books, and Operation Pastorius is a single chapter in the vast story of World War II. In 1948, Dasch and Ernstberger are released from prison and quietly deported back to Germany. No press, no ceremony, no acknowledgement. The same men who once swore to sabotage the United States step off a ship onto the shattered ruins of a defeated homeland. The cities are rubble, the people hollow-eyed from hunger and guilt. Dasch settles in Ludwigsburg, a town on the outskirts of Stuttgart. He lives in a small apartment, working odd jobs, his name tainted on both sides of the Atlantic. To the Germans, he's a traitor who betrayed the fatherland. To the Americans, he's a Nazi spy who deserved worse. He writes a book, 8 Spies Against America, his attempt to tell the truth. In it, he details every moment. The fog at Amagansett, the phone call to the FBI, the lies Hoover spread. He sends copies to journalists, veterans, even U.S. senators. Most don't reply. The story doesn't fit the legend that America has already built. By the 1950s, his life has dwindled to quiet obscurity. He walks to the market every morning, still wearing the same coat he brought from America. Children point at him sometimes. The adults look away. In the eyes of both nations, he is a man without a country, But he still remembers that night on Long Island, the waves, the young Coast Guardsman's flashlight cutting through the fog, the split-second decision that changed everything. He wonders sometimes if that boy survived the war, if he ever knew the truth about what really happened that night. When he closes his eyes, he can still smell the salt air and hear the surf, and for a moment he's back there, standing between two worlds, the one that sent him to destroy and the one he chose to save. He never receives a pardon. He never returns to the United States. He dies in 1992, an old man in Germany, his story half forgotten and half denied. But the truth remains. In the summer of 1942, the German Abwehr sent 8 trained saboteurs to the United States. They never planted a single bomb, never derailed a single train, never destroyed a single factory, because one of their own, a man torn between duty and morality, chose to betray them before they even began. The FBI called it one of their greatest victories. But history, when you look closely enough, tells a different story. It wasn't Hoover's triumph. It wasn't the Bureau's genius. It was John Dasch, the spy who saved America before his feet, had even drive from the Atlantic surf.